Michael Malice, has there ever been a person in history that has more support than this fellow Brandon?
Let's go, Brandon!
It seems like that is the most popular person I've ever come across. Everyone is in support of this Brandon fellow.
Almost all oppression via propaganda is based upon scaring people and then presenting a false choice where the people can choose either to do what you want them to do or face some unknown, often purely fictional horror. Every thing to be feared with which you terrorize your peasants must be presented as some separate outside evil that only you can save them from. You must present the simple choice between obedience to you and the threat of some unpleasant happening. In short, you must deceive and scare the citizens into voluntarily giving up their freedom. A simple example would be making up a plague of some sort, assuring people that millions are doomed to die, and then claiming that giving you a lot of money and control is the only hope of averting disaster.
Well, you know, when you have the chief reporter on the beat of COVID for the New York Times talking about how questioning or pursuing the question of the lab leak is racist, the world has gone mad. When you're not able to say out loud and in public that there are differences between men and women, the world has gone mad. When we're not allowed to acknowledge that rioting is rioting and it is bad, and that silence is not violence, but violence is violence, the world has gone mad. When we're not able to say that Hunter Biden's laptop is a story worth pursuing, the world has gone mad. When, in the name of progress, young school children, as young as kindergarten, are being separated in public schools because of their race, and that is called progress rather than segregation, the world has gone mad.
Who's the people stopping the conversation? Who are they?
People that work at networks, frankly, like the one I'm speaking on right now.
The line that will define those who are free and those in the modern gulags is going to be those who hold Bitcoin and those who do not. What they want is complete control of your actions, because they think you're all ants. They think you're all worthless. They think you don't matter. They think that they know what's better for you than you do for yourself. Because when they can just turn off your bank account because you have an opinion other than what theirs is, that's the ultimate gulag.
The way to change the world is to spread the principles, not play different political games.
Welcome to Toxic Airwaves. Stoked about tonight's episode. Brought to you by Dirtbags Bar in Tucson, Arizona.
That's right. Number one place to meet your future ex-wife.
Yeah. Yeah, I enjoyed that intro. I made it, so I have to enjoy it. But
I enjoyed it too. I did not make it.
Yeah, Larkin Rose is just so stellar across the board. Like, everything he puts out there is just... I don't know. He seems to see through the bullshit very, very clearly, and it's fantastic in this day and age. But yeah. How you doing, Skeef?
Doing great. Had a fantastic weekend in Austin. It was a good time.
When'd you get back?
Sunday.
Okay. Nice. Did you go tour Riot, their facility?
I did not go to that. I just went to, there was the Bit Devs and then the Beefsteak, and then there was a Wednesday night. Bull Bitcoin had a party.
Nice. Got to hang out with Matt Odell.
I did, yeah. It's a good time.
You said Bull Bitcoin had a party?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. Wednesday night there.
Yeah, so that means that Francis, was he in town?
Yes, yeah.
Dang.
Francis, yeah, a lot of those guys.
Nice. Yeah, Francis had a pretty intense space today talking about the COVID restrictions that are happening right now, which is...
I did not listen to that. How was it?
Well, I mean, it was kind of sad, honestly. I mean, people are so fucked in regards to travel, and the heat is getting turned up for people, you know, specifically in Canada, but in a lot of parts of the world right now, it's insane.
Jeez.
So there's like a potential that he, you know, can't really leave the country or come to the United States because I guess our boy Brandon passed an executive order requiring for people to be vaxxed to come in the U.S. if they're traveling.
Jeez.
And I don't think there's some loopholes, but it's, for the privilege, let's say. So it sucks. But yeah, I don't know. These borders are tightening up.
Did they say where they're headed instead? Instead of the U.S.?
No, I don't think.
My understanding is they can't be here past like mid-November or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think they've figured it out yet. But I mean, what we're looking at is this Christmas is people from outside of the country aren't going to be able to come and visit their families. It's going to be a major. I'm still like shocked that they haven't done the domestic vax passport for travel yet. That has blown my mind because they've had the mask mandate or pseudo mask mandate with the airlines. So it only seems about a short amount of time until they implement something like that and really get us locked down from traveling. So
yeah, they must not think they can get away with it. I wonder.
I don't know. I don't think they give a shit if they can get away with it or not. They're just causing mayhem. It's the controlled implosion. But yeah. Well, we've got one. I mean, the only best way to respond, just some witty humor, I guess.
Let's go, Brandon!
It seems.
Did you watch that podcast with Michael Malice?
No, I haven't.
It was pretty good.
I do like him, even though he's leaves something to be desired on Bitcoin, but I like Malice.
Yeah. Yeah, he's pretty fantastic. I haven't read his book, the Anarchist Handbook, yet, but that I need to get around to that eventually. I guess
I have it. You can borrow it.
Okay.
It was pretty interesting. It was a lot of historical stuff I wasn't aware of.
Cool. Yeah, I'd really enjoy. Oh, we got Janet Yellen joining us in Spaces. What's going on, Janet?
What's up, boys?
Not much. We were just about to get to the unrealized capital gains topic.
So you're just in time.
Oh, good. Yeah, you guys might need to move the show. Mondays seem to be really popular right now.
YouTube volume is really weak. The taller guy's mic is a bit louder, but still weak.
Can you guys hear me now?
Oh, this is we can hear you fine. This is just our comments. On
okay.
YouTube.
Yeah, there's literally everyone else. See, the spaces that have been going on right now have been crazy. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, they'll trickle in. That's okay. We're having a good time. We started Monday night, so they're gonna have to work around us.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So Janet Yellen's pushing through this unrealized cap gains. I don't really care. Do you care?
Not really. No. I mean that's why you don't. Yeah. No, I don't.
Yeah. I think this just comes down to like how prepared are you? And I think we've all seen this coming. If we've had a little bit of awareness, the currency's failing, the government's insolvent.
I saw someone say today that they didn't mind it because their argument was they wrote the rules to get themselves this wealthy anyway, so I don't mind it. So my first thought was like, okay, so what? Taxation because they have representation? Like they literally have the most representation in Congress, if that's what you're saying. But then I was like, do you not follow the logic of your own argument, dummy? You don't think they're just going to protect themselves further with legislation? Hello?
Yeah. And once they start selling it, like, don't all your friends work at those companies that they're going to be selling? I mean, there's a lot of downsides.
Yeah.
I mean, I seriously think we would just see a lot of billionaires renounce their citizenship. Like, they don't need to be in the U.S. I know that a lot of them want to do things in the U.S. and that might change things for them. But realistically, if you're a large international corporation and you can move headquarters outside of the U.S., You don't even need to move your headquarters. Like, you yourself just need to spend more time outside the U.S.
How many do you think would take more of a, like what I think of as like an Irish goodbye to the country, where it's like, because like if you formally renounce, it's like 40% or whatever. Like I wonder how many of those people do you think would just kind of just not be there one day? They have their other passports. They, are able to go to another country and do their business there, and just basically count on flying under the radar. I wonder.
Yeah, that's probably the more likely outcome. It's definitely the more political play right there. It's like you don't actually renounce. You just say, well, I mean, like, if you want to avoid paying taxes, you do. I don't know. It gets so gray up there.
Mm-hmm.
It gets so gray.
Yeah.
But yeah, they do. They definitely have those options available to them, so they don't have to make a formal declaration saying like, "I'm out of here." Yeah, we'll see. I think it's fucking bullshit though. Also, did you see this that came out? The Treasury's rolling out. Sorry, I should have had it. Treasury's rolling out the first racial equity counselor. A former J.P. Morgan executive has been hired as the first racial equity counselor. As soon as I saw that, I was like, "Holy fuck! They're actually going to try social credit scores." That's
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
That signals.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and when you're initially talking, I didn't connect those two. But yeah, I mean that's a given. The social credit scores are coming. I mean, I think it's really getting implemented in the next. Well, it's already getting implemented, but it's really gonna. I think Laser Huddle lines it out well, saying that by 2030, that's their endpoint. That's their goal when they want all of this stuff to happen. And so, I think from like a combative standpoint of pushing back against that stuff, like it's really easy to get caught up in the bullshit that they're doing right here in the moment. But we have to be thinking, what's their overarching goal? They want this social credit system. They want to lock down travel, and those are, ultimately the things that we have to be focusing on if we're going to successfully combat it. And yeah, it's going to get really fucked.
Well, and they already have all the technology in place to do it. It's just a matter of what they're using for criteria. I mean, like anything they do to Alex Jones, whoever, they could do to anyone else. They just haven't applied that criteria to them. So that's what I think is interesting. Is like everybody's worried about what new technology is coming, and they already out. I mean, that's why we Bitcoin, because they already have the capacity to do all these things.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they've been collecting data on us for forever. They have these databases already set up. They've got us all put into our little, watch list or whatever. It's just a matter of what they're going to do with it and when. But yeah, bullish on guns. But yeah, I mean, I think what ultimately is important in this is to create communities of people and networks, and these cells, these freedom cells. Like, we have to have the attitude that we're insurgents, in this system, that we're going to fight back, but we have to do it in an underground way. Like this is the resistance right now. Very similarly to times in the past, like when there's been crazy totalitarian regimes. How you doing tonight, Max?
Good. How are you guys?
Doing good. Good to see you this weekend.
Oh, that was so much fun this weekend. I was so glad to stay with you.
Oh, yeah.
It was a good trip.
The perks of being a regular Toxic Airwaves listener.
Yeah, you get in on the down low of what's going on. See all your Bitcoin friends.
Yeah. You got any thoughts on these unrealized capital gains taxes?
I'm curious how they're actually going to execute that. If anybody listens to David Bennett's Bitcoin and podcast, he makes a good case on they're essentially attempting to tax your savings account. Of course, we know people don't have savings, so they're spinning it as they're trying to tax the rich on, owning stocks and borrowing money against it and all that stuff, and their unrealized gains. And we all know that that's going to come probably towards us as well, not Bitcoiners specifically, but just individuals themselves. But I'm just curious how they're going to actually execute on that. When Janet Yellen makes the State of the Union address, like she did last night or whenever that was, it's clearly in the works, and it will be here quite soon, permitting their, the slow-moving giant that government is. But I am not surprised at all that they're doing that. I'm just curious how they're going to execute on that. Meaning, are they taxing your savings account or your Bitcoin holdings? So now we have to claim. Skeef, I know we talked about this over the weekend, but if they're going to do that, are we now going to claim that you buy this piece of art and your art has your private keys on there, but you say that you lost the private keys? But now you said you bought this piece of art, it's worth however much money, let's say $1 million, something stupid. How do you value something like that to get your unrealized capital gains payment? I'm just curious how they're going to execute on something like that.
Yeah.
Those are my thoughts.
I think it's going to be a massive dumpster fire, like everything else they do.
They're going to enforce it.
Yeah.
It's going to be like the Afghanistan withdrawal.
Yeah. It's not going to be as cool as mermaids in a pool, though, right?
No, we'll not.
We saw some mermaids in a pool this weekend.
Yeah, we're done with bears. We got mermaids now.
Yeah, in the car, man.
Yeah.
That was funny.
I saw that picture.
I should have asked those girls if they wanted some lights put on their, little costume or swimsuit, whatever they had.
No, they're real mermaids.
That's true. They were real mermaids. They were very real.
Yeah.
So that's just my thought on there. I'm just curious how they're going to actually execute on. It's not even getting the money. To me, it's that's not the problem. It's the valuation. Is what I
No, I know.
Go ahead.
No. I know. Let's just do an example. So stocks are hard because they move daily, but they don't move they're not as volatile as Bitcoin. Let's leave Bitcoin off to the side. But what about real estate? There's a ton of market data for that. If you own real estate, depending on what the Fed is doing, real estate value is being impacted by that. We saw that this year for sure. What do you think about that?
Yeah.
I mean, real estate is, of course, America's savings account, right? I know the rental properties that we have.
It's like
my family values that.
It's the last rung on the American dream, on the ladder that is the American dream, and they're about to fucking kick out that last step.
Yeah, and where are they going to pull that valuation from? Very obvious. Whatever the bank values that at, your property taxes, so on and so forth. It's essentially another tax on, you holding that asset. But I'm just curious. Yeah, real estate's a great example for following through. That's a pretty obvious one. That's a great point.
Okay. So
do you think it's
year
unfair?
one is easy.
I was going to say, do you
year
think
one is easy because you could just tax the gains that happen in year one. So just say you tax it at 10% unrealized capital gains. Your house goes up 100,000, you pay 10,000. Well, what about year two? Is it the difference between year 1 and 2, or is it the aggregate amount that still hasn't been unrealized? Like, I guess what I'm saying is, are they going to tax the same 100,000 of unrealized capital gains? Like, if you bought it at 300, it's worth 400. Do you have to pay that like a property tax every single year? Fucking crazy.
Seems like you would. I mean, it seems like they would add that on. It's not like you just pay it once and then it's done. I think it would be, a rolling year over year thing. Whatever the value it goes up, you would pay on top of that, including what it was, the year prior, which is, again, a scam, but, that's what government is.
Yeah, it's insane.
I was going to say, do you think it's so nefarious that they're intentionally trying to, have confiscation of people's property come out of this? Because that's basically the implication. I mean, think about how many people very quickly run out of ways to get that cash for, 10,000 or 20,000 or whatever it is, because that just a ton of people wouldn't have that money. And so they would eventually have more tax than they could pay without selling the property, which presumably would be impaired by then.
Yeah, that's very, at least in how it's being presented. We don't know details, of course, but it kind of seems like how it'll turn out.
Yeah.
It's really shitty.
Yeah. I just wonder how much it's intentional. I don't know.
I think it's intentional.
Well, did anybody hear not to pivot away from the unrealized topic, but did anybody hear the Prime Minister, the PM in New Zealand, answer the question regarding the journalist, ask of, are you purposefully creating two classes of people? And her answer was, with a smile on her face, yes, this is exactly what our goal is. So yeah, you could very well make it intentional to confiscate people's property by having that rolling, unrealized gain. So as we know, property, quote unquote, goes up in value because constant money printing. Your property taxes goes up and up and up and up year after year. I don't see why they wouldn't, at least in the back of their mind, in my mind, they would say, let's make this intentional and just have BlackRock come in and buy all the property when these people can't pay the tax, because now the tax is not just 1% of the value of the home 4, 5, 6 years later as it goes up in value. It's actually 7, 8, 12%. And exactly what you just said, Skeef, where are they going to get that $25,000 to pay their property taxes? They're not.
Yeah.
It seems, yeah, you're absolutely right.
And then BlackRock, like you said, can sweep in with that Fed money and buy up neighborhoods.
Bingo. And then flip it back on you and charge you rent based on value of the
based
home.
on inflation, which is now 20%.
Exactly.
Well, I guess everybody that doesn't have Bitcoin will be living in shipping containers.
I don't think they'll last that long. I think they're done soon. I don't think they have much left in them.
The state.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just like that, like overarching level of power, and like the Fed. I mean, the Fed. The analogy everybody's heard a billion times is the Fed is pushing on a shoestring. I mean, there's only so much they can do with only one tool.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I'm kind of bearish on the state. I mean, they don't have any power if we don't comply. And this is something that, I think a lot of people need to understand. If we all just say like, hey, you guys are kind of irrelevant, we're going to go and do our thing. Yeah. There's not a ton they can do. The best they can do with all of this is just make examples out of a few people. But if you get a bunch of people standing up and saying, no, fuck you guys, we're not complying. I mean, unless they go full concentration camp, which will not go over very well, because we have enough people that are armed and not okay with that. I think, it's the only way I see it, our way out of this is just, we need to balkanize, and we can do that on a smaller scale. It's not like we have to go and petition our state to leave the United States or something like that. I just think we can balkanize in our communities right now. We can create our own supply chains to a certain degree, and we can create our own income. We can create our own schools. We can create our own stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
I was in the breakfast, the Bitcoin breakfast chat today in Spaces while working, and somebody brought up they lived overseas, or at least they got rid of their American passport, put it that way, and they lived around the world. And as that person enjoyed the nomadic life and found life or found residence in Mexico or wherever else overseas, come to the realization that pretty much only Switzerland and America have full Second Amendment rights, full gun rights. And the moment that falls, especially if America falls, like that towards Canada or Australia, we're going to have a very dark time and dark ages, very similar to the Middle Ages. It'll be extremely dark. So you'll see, the states start to fragment out and be their own countries, as we've always talked, something like Texas or Wyoming or Arizona, seceding. But it's really keeping at least a majority of the American ideals of freedom and protecting your own through the Second Amendment as prevalent as possible. Because if that falls, it's going to be a very, very, very dark time. I just found that very interesting from a guy that traveled for 15, 20 years without being an American citizen.
Yeah. No, this is something that's, the guns are the forefront of the battle right now, and they'll continue to be the forefront of the battle for a long time. I don't think that they can overtly go out and ban guns. I don't think that's feasible. But what I think they'll do is they'll try and pass legislation making it really difficult to produce guns and difficult to produce ammunition. We're already seeing it where they're making it incredibly difficult to import ammunition. They ban, different things coming from Russia, which, is bullshit because I love Russian ammo because I'm a cheapskate. But we're gonna see that they're gonna make it plays into this two-tiered system. And everybody knows this with gun control. All it is allowing for the wealthy parasites to have exclusive access to firearms and protection, and everybody else is just kind of out getting screwed. As we can't rely on the police. Like, the police are not there to serve us or protect us. They're there to enforce laws, and so I think this is something that's really, really interesting with the 3D gun printing community. I'm pretty stoked because I'm having a couple guys from Atlas Arms on my podcast this upcoming week, and we're going to be talking about that. And that's something that they're working on, is how do we create ammo. And yeah, I mean, it's going to be the forefront of the revolution, but I think we're going to have to get really creative on this front if we're going to prevent that from happening, because the guns that we have are only Joe Rogers. I bet he has some good thoughts on this. But the guns that we're using are only going to be as effective as, the ammo that we're shooting out of it. And if we don't have access to it because it's, prohibitively expensive, or you just can't find it anywhere, then it doesn't really do us any good. So
go follow Suckboy Tony.
Yep.
On Twitter. They've been talking about it for quite a while at this point, but they are successfully now printing at least the casing of the shell for ammo. And of course, I don't know who I was talking to this weekend, but in a worst case scenario, I think it's a beefsteak, you're on the gravel. At the absolute worst case scenario, you can always just make your actual bullet, stone or whatever is within your area that you have. It's really, what can withstand the pressure of the powder, propelling that projectile.
Yeah.
But they're doing it.
Yeah. No, the Atlas Arms guys, Suckboy Tony, absolutely amazing. Yeah, he's going to be on my podcast this upcoming week. So I'm super stoked.
I'll definitely listen. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm super stoked about the stuff he's doing. So 12 says this episode in history will be discussed like the Salem witch trials, the level of hysteria. That is true, I think. Yeah. I totally agree. I mean, we very well could have a Nuremberg Trials 2.0 coming out of this. A lot of people.
Oh, we absolutely will. Absolutely.
Yeah. A lot of people have been talking about that. I mean, it's the stuff that people are doing right now is just absolutely insane. Like, I've had a few friends recently reach out to me about the supply chain issues, because I've been telling them, over the past year, I kind of was, trying to get my feet under me when, the COVID hysteria first started, and trying to figure out what was happening. But after a few months of seeing the actual impacts on my community, I was like, this is fucked. This is absolutely fucked what they're doing to people. And some of the people that have been either ambivalent or promoting the lockdowns are now kind of coming around like, oh, I can't get my hands on anything. Like everything's difficult to find now, and prices are going up. Like, what do you think's going to happen in the future? I was like, oh, it's going to get worse because, you people are just,
lemmings.
Fucking lemmings. And supporting this stuff. And, yeah, I mean, there has to be accountability for this. And one of the hard things that happened is so many people have given their consent, for all of this to happen. And it was a very similar thing that happened in Nazi Germany. A lot of people gave their consent, and it's like, trying to figure out who's responsible. It's going to be difficult, but that's, we're still in the midst of this. Like, we're in the midst of this battle right now, and we've got a ways to go before we win. So to get too far ahead of ourselves, like focusing on, how do we hold these people accountable? Like, we need to end up on top. We need to make sure this planet doesn't end up as a giant prison for all of us.
My biggest concern is indifference from the Nuremberg trials, however it's pronounced. And Skeef and I were listening to Spaces over the weekend about this, what Preston Fish was hosting, and that is, at least after World War II, you had obviously the winners are the ones that write history and prosecute the losers of which did the war crimes, but I don't really see who is going to be the winners here that will be the prosecutors to these people that are committing crimes upon humanity. Yes, it is us as Bitcoiners, but that's not really a country, and that's not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing, but I'm just trying to picture who is going to be the ones to prosecute the criminals here. And why I was referring to that Spaces of the Preston was holding over the weekend is all this stuff has happened before. The money printing, the hyperinflation, it's all been happened before. Read through history, you can figure everything out. The best investors are very proficient in history, especially human behavior. The difference with this time is, and I definitely agree with them, I've said this many times before, the difference this time is it's happening globally, all at the same time. It's like the entire world is having a mirror held up to them, and you're trying to outrun yourself in front of the mirror. So how does that work? It's very challenging to see the others. I mean, I know we're going to win eventually. We already are winning. But when that day does come, who is the prosecutors on a global scale? And how do we get out of this as everybody is trying to outrun themselves looking in the mirror? I think these are questions that can't be answered at the moment, but just food for thought.
Yeah.
What do you think, Skeef?
Yeah, I definitely have no idea. I don't know what kind of entities or institutions will be around on the other side of that.
Yeah. I mean, I think the ultimate accountability is not allowing these people in positions of power to ever do it again. And I think that's like the big mistake that we made following World War II, is not realizing that the problem with all of this is government. It's creating these these authority structures that allow for this level of violence to be organized against people. Like that's the real problem. And when we tear it down, like, I just don't see, like, yeah, it's a good question. Like, how are these people going to be held accountable? Well, I think ultimately, like, breaking the cycle is probably the best way to go about it. And, not like remembering what they've done to us and done to everybody, and holding that to them, holding them accountable for that. And not like, you look at Meltem in the world of hyper Bitcoinization, are we going to forget what she's done to people? Or Brian Armstrong, like, I sure hope not, and I sure hope they can't get away with it because of these, we completely dismantle the structures of the future that allow for this bullshit to happen. So that's kind of my, I don't know.
Yeah.
It is a lot to think about. Though.
I think they'll be totally cut out from the prosperous part of society, but the most important thing is that their ability to accumulate and hold power is rapidly getting destroyed, and it's pretty cool to watch. And yeah, it's going to be, a lot of them are still just like really struggling to come to terms with how irrelevant they are. Like there was who was it? Somebody posted I'm gonna have to look it up. Somebody posted a video of the video of Chomsky today.
Oh my gosh!
Where he's talking about, we should do this and these people should be cut out from society. And I'm like, have you thought to think about how many people actually give a fuck what you think? Like, not very many. And not just him, but the people who hold his worldview. There's just a giant, intolerant minority that doesn't pay attention to that noise. And so when they say, we're going to cut them out of society, there's a lot of people that are saying, no, I'm doing just fine. You don't have any power over me. And that's, to me, like, that's the approach, is not to expect a bunch of lunatics to be normal, but to protect ourselves and insulate ourselves and just practice freedom of association, which is a lot easier now than it used to be.
Yeah. Gosh, that video Chomsky really got me. That guy.
Weird.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know if he's lost it, or, I mean, I just think people working in academia, it's hard to trust them. It's like really, really difficult to trust them, because it's like somebody working for the government. Are you really going to trust them on whether they're legitimate or not? And, there are some that are, but they're, the wild exception. But yeah, I mean, Chomsky's gone down the drain pretty quick. Like, he was saying that we need to all vote for Biden to, yeah, that's ridiculous. He's a victim of manufactured consent.
Don, what is that? Ace Demi?
Academics.
Oh, academics.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, they're paid actors. They're tree ski.
That's right.
Yeah.
We don't acknowledge their presence. The comment was, they're trees. We don't acknowledge their presence. That's right.
Yeah. Well, Chomsky's at the U of A, I think. I think he's still in Tucson.
Is he really?
Yeah.
I never knew he was at the U of A. I thought he was at somewhere in the East Coast.
I think he's in the U of A.
Huh. I don't know. I mean, I never looked into it, so I don't know.
Don's
I thought it was
commenting in
Massachusetts or something.
I think he's gone back and forth, but last I checked, he's still at the U of A.
Interesting.
Secession is the best we can hope for. The root of the problem is collective instinct, which gives power to otherwise weak people. Yes.
Yeah, and what Greg was talking about a couple of weeks ago about the really, really unique strengths and characteristics of, like, the lower 48 continental United States. It's just basically talking about how defensible it is, how easy it is to trade, how easy it is to move things around, all that.
Yeah. No, it's dope. Yeah, we do have a geographic advantage here. It's pretty cool that a lot of other places don't have.
Yeah. Yeah, like the geographic area of this country is going to be fantastic. It's the government that's totally fucked and going away.
Yeah. But I mean, I think, like, one thing that a theory I've been mulling around in my head is how Bitcoin mining specifically is going to lead to balkanization. And I think, it's just a simple answer. Like, all of these states, like, Texas, Arizona, Florida, South Dakota, Wyoming, that want to have meaningful pushback against the federal government. The only one that is actually, like, financially, on their feet and not massively overextended is actually, there's two, South Dakota and Wyoming. Those are, like, two of, like, I think 3 or 4 states in the entire country that are not entirely dependent on the federal government. And so I think that's a really important, like, the states are going to start competing with each other. The geographical regions are going to start competing with each other for, hash rate. And I think, with that comes increased balkanization as the, different regions get a little bit more economically independent of, the federal government. So, Yeah. Don asked a great question. So do we think that the U.S. will acquire too much hash rate?
I hope not. I definitely want it in the rest of the world, not in the U.S.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what. Yeah, I mean, if one of us, was to do our own facility, it would obviously be here. But I guess that's a rounding error on a rounding error compared to the total.
If the U.S. goes above 50%, I will not be comfortable.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Well, I mean,
I don't know where I heard. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, you go ahead, Max.
I don't know where I heard this, somewhere over the weekend, probably Spaces again, but somebody threw out a number that America now has like 30% of Bitcoin's hash rate, and that really freaked me out.
Yeah.
Knowing full well that whatever mining firms, again, publicly traded and have VC money or just state money in general, now we get into the conversation of whitelisting transactions, and that's 30% of the network. If that's true, that's terrifying. I feel very comfortable in one location having less than 20%, no more than a quarter. Any more than that gets very concerning.
Yeah. So 12 says, you're trolling, right? It's kind of funny, but I don't see the problem unless we keep going the China route. And I guess my concern is that most of that would be in giant facilities like the Riot one that, that's going to have 60-something thousand S19s whenever it's up online. And just to give you a frame of reference, I think somebody told me Slush Pool in total had something like 150,000 S19, like the equivalent. Obviously they've got a giant mix, but so it's like one facility having about a third. And if those numbers are wrong, please somebody call me a retard. That's perfectly acceptable. But that was what I remembered hearing this weekend. And so anyway, just basically that those giant facilities are such a huge footprint that they could, they could do like what Max has mentioned and try to get them to censor transactions. And obviously none of this matters in the medium term or the long term. It's just kind of an annoying thing that could come up in the short term.
I got to jump real quick and got a segue and we'll come back. So this video will be sponsored by, or is being sponsored by Dennis Porter, and will be put on his YouTube channel.
He's actually paying us in British HODL stock tips. So what you guys need to do is sell a little bit of the scarcest, most important asset the world has ever known and buy some publicly traded pile of dog shit that happens to be a mining stock. So that's what you guys need to do, and then you'll outperform Bitcoin just like British HODL.
Our compensation for this is he'll be sending us Glassnode screenshots once a week.
Yeah.
So we'll have some pretty sick trading.
Oh, that's the other thing. If you've got 10 grand burning a hole in your pocket, definitely pay up front for an annual Glassnode subscription, which is the only way to get it. Don't buy a machine that's currently extremely profitable and will get you KYC free sats.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so 12 brings up, so I see corporation as a threat, but not really to Bitcoin. Miners are at risk, but Bitcoin is not really. Miners don't control Bitcoin. Well, I mean, yes, that's true, like in the long term, but, say all these miners get co-opted, they could run a lot of disruption to the network.
One thing, I mean, either way, hash rate is going outside the country. So what would have less friction is if it went outside the country now, and then it just wasn't a concern. But I mean, either way, hash rate is I think is going outside the U.S. because if it stays here and they crack down on it, then it goes outside the U.S. And it's just anybody with miners online that they can't get to whenever that happens is going to be absolutely printing money, probably, because presumably fees will be back up. Things will be more expensive. Certainly the dollar value of the sats will be much higher. And then to see a bunch of hash rate go offline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So were you saying that Riot is on Slush Pool?
No, just that one facility has a massive amount of hash rate.
Okay.
So like shutting down that one facility, if my numbers are right, and like I said, if they're not right, somebody please tell me in the comments I'm a retard. But what I remember is that what was represented at that facility is about a third of what Slush Pool does. So if they knocked on the door and shut down that one facility, it'd be the equivalent of shutting down a third of Slush Pool. If those numbers are right.
Gotcha.
I just heard them once.
Slush pool is a pretty small pool, though, from what I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's only about 8, I think now 8.5 exahash on there. Earlier this summer it was like 6. So 50% increase. I'm sorry, like 40% increase over the past.
Yeah, I wonder what that
4
would
or
be.
5 months.
Is F2 pool the biggest or one of the biggest?
One I know one of. I don't know who actually has the most hash rate, but everybody's kind of floating around that 8 to 15 exahash.
Okay. Oh, I missed this comment. Young Lurk said British Hodl says to long ETH, what a commie. I did not know he said to long ETH. That makes it even better.
Yeah.
Funny.
British Hodl. What a silly
I was
name.
my first introduction to him, and actually Lurk remember this. He was in the Telegram group where I asked. I'd seen him, I'd obviously heard his name, but I hadn't done Clubhouse, so I didn't really know. I'd never heard him before. And then the first time I heard him was that Spaces that Dennis Porter hosted, and the whole time he was talking, I was like, "Is this guy retarded, or am I missing something?" And then he would say something else, and then I don't know, like at one point he was talking about how he was like, yeah, I might have gotten into Bitcoin in 2020, but because of my, trading and I'm buying these mining stocks and blah, 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 blah. He's like, I'll end up having a CAGR of somebody that got in about 2015, 2016, something like that. I'm like, go fuck yourself. You're so stupid. But so anyway, all you need to do is follow those mining trading stock tips and you'll outperform Bitcoin too.
That's funny. Yeah, what a goof. Lots of goofs around Bitcoin.
Don says British Hodl was buying tons of ETH options. Good. I hope he's only 5% Bitcoin, just like Rug Pal.
I hope he buys a bunch of XRP. I had some random guy at a meetup I was at, not a Bitcoin meetup, but tell me that the Rockefellers were initially behind Ethereum, which I thought was interesting. I cannot corroborate it.
Yeah.
I asked him for receipts, and he said they all got scrubbed from the internet. Doesn't sound too reliable, but it is an interesting theory to have. Oh, better remain silent. Better remain silent and be thought a fool than to speak and to remove all doubt. Yes. I mean, there's a lot of things that I'm kind of a moron on, so I try not to speak.
Lurk says British Hodl and Jason Williams love the ETH. Dude is a total retard. I know Jason Williams, he does that, turn tires into energy mining for ETH. I know he does that for ETH. Does he? I don't follow him real closely. Does he do other ETH trading, like promoting shit like that?
Probably. I don't know. I don't follow Jason Williams. I'm bad on this topic because I try and avoid it as much as possible.
Lurk is laughing at scrub from the internet.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. Yeah, it was like some random guy he showed up at the Mises caucus meetup and was talking about like how he wasn't an anarchist or a libertarian, but he was suggesting that we need to fix things by taxing people so that it incentivizes them to live in a home for longer than 3 years. And it's just like, oh my gosh. So
yeah,
not a very credible source, but I thought it was funny. Could be true. Yeah, I'm pretty bad with this stuff. I really struggle with following the shitcoiners. Like I see something stupid on my thread, and I just on Twitter. Like Twitter's meant to be my happy space, where I go and hang out with people I actually like instead of being subjected to the insanity, because I feel like it affects my mental, spiritual, emotional health seeing all the bullshit on there. Oh, wow. Williams also.
Okay, go ahead.
So I guess Williams also pumped Thorchain.
That one, I knew some people in Washington who got duped by that. It was, they were good anarchist type people, and I told them all the Bitcoin stuff, and they like Thorchain better.
Yeah. I mean, were they like liking it because of its
it's going to take over the world. Bitcoin's old. It doesn't work. Thorchain is where, I don't even know what you use Thorchain for, like where the apps are going to be hosted.
Thorchain was supposed to be a decentralized exchange. So like a protocol where you could trade different assets. And
I guess some token was supposedly fake equity in the exchange or something.
Something like that. Either that or it was like a utility token for the exchange. Supposedly, like you need to use the token to. I mean, it's the same exact concept of Ethereum, from what I understood. Welcome, HG Town. Yeah. Well, there is a bullish case for Ethereum mining that I don't think a lot of people are talking about, but let's be honest. ETH 2.0 is never going to be rolled out. It's going to be proof of work forever. They can't figure out proof of stake. So for those that are Ethereum mining, might as well stick with it.
There is a
secure job.
There was an A16 graphic showing proof of work and proof of stake blockchains based on how far they were to one side or the other. And they had Ethereum over. It was A16Z. They had Ethereum over in the proof of stake chain section, and so everybody was just ripping them in the comments, pointing out that it's still proof of work.
Yeah. So Zorn says, I have no idea what all these chains are, LOL. I checked out of the Sheetcoin land 3 years ago. That's good.
Pretty much the only ones I hear about is if I don't have my block and mute filters on Twitter adjusted just right, or if I hear about it in real life.
Yeah. It makes me feel better knowing these turds want a shitcoin while we initiate Bitcoinization. Yeah, that's a good.
There's some, I would guess a lot of them are smart enough to keep most of their money in Bitcoin, though. And whether they're right or not, they look at it as a way to get more Bitcoin. Like Pomp is one. He does all that shady shit where he's like, one day he's saying, boo-hoo, why are you guys hating on me for an $850 course? Why are you calling me a scammer? This isn't fair. And then in the same 24-hour period, he's shilling Miami Coin and talking about Stacks and how awesome Stacks is. And it's, I don't know. But him, I think he probably is mostly in Bitcoin.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Pomp probably is mostly in Bitcoin. But yeah, he's gotten pretty bad recently. I mean, he's been bad for a while.
He went back to where he was last bull cycle.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. I missed that one. Got in right after, but yeah, it's pretty bad. I mean, I guess there's just so much money in shitcoins that you can make just by shilling it. If you have a decent audience, some project will approach you and be like, "Hey, we'll give you millions of dollars to go out there and pump our bags." And yeah, I think a lot of people are susceptible to that bullshit, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, that's the only way I can wrap my mind around it, because there's not a ton of, really anything innovative happening there. I mean,
yeah, well, that's why I always tell people I think Bull Bitcoin easily has the best business model in all of Bitcoin. I don't think it's even close. Just like with how they set it up, how they set things up, non-custodial. I mean, just how it's just in my opinion, it's a very, very, very long-term approach. And my assumption would be they're just barely getting started. And so there's other exchanges and companies come along and they take shit coins and they take VC money, and in the short term they grow a lot more. But my guess is we'll see a lot of cool stuff coming out of Bull Bitcoin.
Yeah. Yeah, I need to follow them closer. So yeah, Don says Pomp's YouTube posts with Solana covers are miserable. Whatever happened to Solana?
That was
pretty sure it's pumping, isn't it?
Is it?
I don't know.
Because it went offline for at least 9 hours at one point, just completely.
Wasn't it Gigi? I think it was that Solana. He tweeted. He said, if you can shut it down, it's not decentralized.
Yeah.
I think it was Gigi.
Yeah, so it has pumped. It's up 33% over the week. But it's looking it's sitting right above XRP, so that kind of puts it into perspective.
Hey, not to change the subject.
No, please do.
I see
We hate Solana.
AK-47. Yeah, exactly. We hate Solana. I see AK-47 is listening. Are you guys recording right now or no?
It goes on YouTube each week. Yeah.
Okay. I won't say why, but AK-47, check your Telegram. Just confirm that you see a message. So, okay, that was it. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, Max, we told you this is being recorded for Dennis's podcast.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
He's
welcome everybody. Welcome all the listeners. Please subscribe, like, and put on your post notifications. I'll do your shilling for you guys. Don't worry.
We need more British HODL trading tips as compensation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Don says, what do you guys think about Bull Bitcoin and their involvement with Wasabi 2.0? I like both of those teams a lot. Yeah. I think it'll be interesting. I know definitely not to start up the green team, red team debate, but one thing that, and this is something I talked to Francis about this weekend, that I just love is when, like on Twitter, the samurai people come along, they hate Wasabi, fine. And so they've got, there's like one of 3 or 4 responses that they always use. It's this one report, or it's the plus token, or it's the change address issue, or it's a couple of other things. And what I love is watching what Francis usually does is he'll say, okay, you hate Wasabi, you hate Bull Bitcoin. Like, you think Wasabi's terrible, it doesn't work, blah, 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 blah. He's like, you've never de-anonymized a single Bull Bitcoin Wasabi transaction ever. Like, we use it a ton. You've never de-anonymized any of it. Why? Why is that? And it's like, I've never seen an answer out of them from it, and I just think it's hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah, Francis has some good responses there.
But
I've never understood that drama.
Yeah. It seems to be pretty one-sided.
I mean, isn't it like selling your product though? It's kind of like when, again, no bad beef for me on any of these people, but when, somebody like Rodolfo comes out and says, you need to get your keys into a offline cold storage device, instead of using whatever offline methods that people make. You can kind of see why he's doing that, because he wants people to buy more cold cards. That's fine. It seems in the same, coin joining battles. Wouldn't Samurai rather pick up on the coin join fees than have those transactions go through Wasabi or Join Market or Chaincase? It kind of seems like it's just selling your product.
Yeah, no, I'm totally fine with anybody promoting their product. It's the big major critiques of Wasabi just seem to fall pretty flat once they get challenged outside the echo chamber. And that's one of the big examples is, it's like everybody knows ton of volume from Bull Bitcoin runs through Wasabi. They publicize it, everybody knows that. And it's like nobody's been able to learn hardly anything of value about any of their transactions, anything like that. And so it's like this whole idea of like, oh, it's obviously terrible and broken and doesn't work. It's like, well, no, that's, the red one might be better than the green one. That's entirely possible. But taking this approach of this one's obviously broken and terrible and work, it's like, well, then why don't you go figure out some of these transactions, or figure out what's happening. And then, to the best of my knowledge, and I've seen him ask this question many, many times, they've never been able to. And so, yeah, I'm totally fine with anybody promoting their product. Here's why mine's better than yours, et cetera, et cetera. But the big, wide arching, particularly angry claims seem to not hold up very well. Would be my 2 cents.
Yeah. I wonder what British HODL prefers.
He's definitely not a Join Market guy.
Can you run your GBT? Can you run your GBTC through Whirlpool?
Yeah, well, no, he's concerned if he can send directly from BlockFi to Coinbase Pro, so that he can get interest on his Bitcoin and then trade.
There's no way he actually trades in spot.
Oh, I bet he does trade, and I bet he loses a fuck ton of money and then LARPs on spaces.
No, I feel like he only he trades in paper Bitcoin. I feel like he doesn't trade in spot.
Oh yeah,
that's what I mean. Yeah,
he's probably.
And then you get your dividend from the. You got some custodial. Then you get your dividend from the mining stocks, right?
Yeah. Your dividends in fiat.
Yeah.
3% or 1% or whatever nonsense. But anyway, you'll outperform Bitcoin, so you'll be good. And just that claim right there. Anytime I hear somebody say that, I think, oh, outperform in what? In fiat bullshit I don't want? Like, even if that was the prospect, I'm still locked up in an old system where they can take it all at any second. Why the fuck would I do that? I'm not here to buy nice cars. I'm here to be free. It's not that complicated.
Yeah. That's a good point. I mean, that's just the important part of this, but I mean, I think what it comes down to is you don't know what you're talking about unless you had an account on bitcointalk.org.
Oh, yeah. There's reference in.
I looked down there. I didn't have an account. So.
About a year ago, I got chewed out by a big blocker guy, and he was making all the standard ones, and I just wasn't really interested. I was like, no, anyway. I talked to him a little bit, and then we ended up settling on he said I was wrong because he had a Bitcoin Talk account from 2014 and I did not. So that made him right about Bitcoin Cash being the future, and Bitcoin should have adopted hard fork to BitBlocks and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
So I told him, yep, all right, sounds good.
The fiat mindset.
Yeah.
It's a disease.
Well, and it's like, because you have to factor in, their ability to tax it through inflation and tax it regular and steal it. And it's like, even if you do somehow outperform Bitcoin, they can still take a chunk of it, and then you're back to being fucked.
Yeah. It's going to get worse with unrealized cap gains.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's something that's incredibly bullish if you think about it, because it's going to force people to hold more spot Bitcoin and use, like, this is just what always happens with government is they push hard and then people respond and they, counteract the government's mandates and attempts to control, and it just creates a massive free market.
And you can get a boomer to understand this device secures your Bitcoin, secure it like you would a gold bar. And they're like, oh, that makes sense to me. I can do that. Most of them won't, but I think a good chunk will go that far.
Oh, that's a good question. Were you guys arguing with Corey, the Beat Cash guy?
I'm not sure.
I think I had a Beat Cash guy comment on one of my videos one time. Yeah. 10 minute running. Yeah, I think he just trolls the Bitcoin channels,
okay.
Looking to comment how Bcash is the real Bitcoin. Shout out to JW Weatherman. Or no, that wasn't JW.
Carvalho. I had the pleasure of talking to him a little bit this weekend.
Yeah, shout out to Carvalho.
The Roger Ver flipping him off. That was from Carvalho's podcast about 5 years ago, probably 4 years ago.
I need to use that in another intro. It was so.
Yeah.
It's just
and just the way he did it, because Carvalho was smiling and having a good time the whole time, and it was Ver that was getting super pissed off. And then right when Ver got pissed off and was leaving, he goes, Bcash, 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 Bcash. Just says it over and over again. It's pretty good. Yeah. It was very petty, and it was awesome.
I'm just amazed that he got Roger on. I mean, that was an interesting point. That was right when Bcash had just forked.
Yeah, I think it was like May, like late spring 2017 or early summer, something like that. I think it was May.
So Don Reddy says there will be a point where people holding GBTC in these ETFs will get stuck trading out of their holdings for worthless USD. The price will be moving too fast for them to trade USD for real BTC.
And they're going to put all kinds of guardrails on getting out of those. Mm-hmm. So think if it takes you, if you can even get it out, but it takes you a month or two or whatever to move from an ETF to actual Bitcoin. And then by then, presumably there's guardrails on buying too.
Yeah, I mean, this is something I think is incredibly important to highlight is when the currencies fail, they like to implement capital controls and tell you what you can and can't do with your money. They're going to make it really difficult to buy, real Bitcoin and withdraw it from exchanges because that's the way to work out of it. They're going to try and get people to convert all their Bitcoin into fiat on exchanges.
That's a really good point from Zorn. I think BCH was a program to cross-reference and
Doc's early Bitcoin accounts.
Yeah, that's entirely possible.
Yeah.
And that's, I've said this before on here. It's like the concentration of spooks in the big block thing is very, very concerning, because it's anybody with a little bit of technical aptitude can see what a security risk bigger blocks are. Like, as you know, and we all know the arguments, we've heard them a billion times. And so it's like, because that is so obvious, like it's difficult to see how somebody, can go that way through. I mean, it's either ignorance or malice, and I would guess a lot of it is malice. Not most, but enough to be pretty nefarious.
Yeah. Malcolm. Are there any other big blockers working for the World Economic Forum outside of her that you saw?
No, I just saw that means, somebody posted the link to her page.
I won't be surprised if Brian Armstrong starts working with them here pretty soon somehow.
Taleb at the BSV conference cracked me up. I didn't realize. I thought I would have, even with all this stuff, I would have thought his speaking fees were higher than that.
Well, I don't know.
I would have, yeah, because somebody that speaks at a place like that is, I don't know what, yeah, not that much.
Resentment can drive you to do a lot of ridiculous things out of spite. And that seems what he's entirely driven on, is just anger. So go to any lengths to try and. So what was the thing that set him off? Do we know?
Saifedean and COVID. He got his feelings hurt because he was all COVID hysterical, and Saifedean was making fun of it. And I don't even think Saifedean even made fun of him directly. But yeah, he talked about how he blocks cranks and charlatans like Saifedean who, don't care about public health, blah, 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 don't understand systemic risk, blah, 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 and all this nonsense. And then, pretty soon after that is when he started going really crazy.
Yeah. Another case of academia.
Yeah.
Just totally poisoning someone.
Yeah, it just shows how much of his story is a fraud.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think so one of the video kind of glitched out the intro that I played, but one of the things that Larkin Rose said at the end is, we don't change things by playing political games. We change things by spreading the principles. And like, you look at the people that have been super consistent over the past couple years, they're people with principles. Like Ron Paul is entirely different than Noam Chomsky. You know what I mean? Like Ron Paul has been the most consistent person I've ever seen, and that guy's old, he's really, really old. And I think that's saying a lot. And I think what it comes down to is a lot of people just don't have these principles. I think like there's probably something to people like Nicholas Taleb where they get this status, that they're super, super attached to and afraid of losing at any cost. And like, I mean, it's pretty apparent if you come out against COVID, against the lockdowns, against all of this stuff over the past year, like, you would have lost your status. You would have been labeled a charlatan. You would have been censored. And so the incentives are there to, push these people that valued their, whatever more than actual standing on principles.
Yeah.
How weak you have to be trolled by somebody like Saifedean. That's funny. Guys in spaces, you got anything on this topic? Might have lost him. Max is busy playing with his S9s and Shishi's out permaculturing.
No, I was just playing with my node on a couple things, trying to do some stuff. The med pool is damn near empty, and that would be time to open up channels, coin join, boost up your multi-sig, do it while the fees are low.
It's good to know.
Yeah.
Notice that the people suggesting that Bitcoin still needs to raise block size don't have much of an argument recently.
Yeah. I heard a pretty interesting argument this weekend for, and I I don't know. I haven't looked into it too much, but I looked into it. But anyway, basically the idea was that we won't see sustained high fees for at least for a very long time, maybe ever. And the argument was basically like, that is, there's just huge incentive for people to work on the problem of solving transaction fees and transaction costs. And so, like one example is and this is another one where if somebody knows more than me, jump in for sure. But there's another one of a potential, I believe it's a software coming up called signature aggregation that sounds like it would make coin joins, as I understand it, would make coin joins way, way, way cheaper because it would essentially it collapses all the signatures into one for the input and significantly reduces how much data there is and reduces how much the fee is. And that is the I heard it this weekend, preliminary version. So if anybody knows better, definitely say so. But I thought that was interesting.
we were kind of talking about that this weekend. Wherever we were walking to, I think I was just talking with you.
Mm-hmm.
But just hearing from somebody like Super Testnet regarding when you get certain upgrades just in the protocol layer, like Taproot, while it is small improvement, same thing for SegWit a couple of years ago. As we continue down this road of the Bitcoiners actually improving the Bitcoin protocol, you start to refine your cost basis of the on-chain footprint, mainly your fees. So your dust fee was like 600 sats, prior to SegWit. Once we got SegWit, we dropped that down to 140 sats per V byte. And then with Taproot coming up in a couple weeks, it's going to be down to like 110 or something like that, or even less than that, like 90. I can only see this trend continuing as you get more, batching, going to the signature aggregation. That's a little less on the priority, though. I know that, and I don't know why. Somebody knows better, please let me know. But it seems like over time, 10, 20 years down the road, you could see an on-chain footprint coming from one UTXO for a fee, maybe only costing like 15 Satoshis. Okay, so if you have a wallet with like 45 sats in it right now, maybe right now you can't move it, but as the upgrades come over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, just for your on-chain, transactional space that it takes up, you could be down to like tens of Satoshis, which is crazy to think about. Because at that point, you could be at $1 million, $2 million, $5 million, $10 million Bitcoin, but yet you're still getting 1 sat per byte transactions through because people own a UTXO, and certain upgrades have come across to just reduce the byte space of a transaction. Just wild to think about. And learn something else this weekend too. There's only talking about John Carvalho, he brought up there's only availability of like 80 million UTXOs,
mm-hmm.
and it had something to do with the amount of Bitcoin in circulation, right? The amount of Satoshis in circulation right now divided by the dust limit brings you, so the numbers are roughly like 3.5 billion or something like that. And then from there, then you start subtracting out, okay, we know that, Coinbase holds this much, GBTC holds this much, Grayscale, Satoshi's coins that are quote unquote lost. And it came out to like there's only 80 million UTXOs that are ever going to be available. So I find that kind of interesting as well, which isn't a big deal if you keep refining down your on-chain byte space to those levels. So I'm very bullish on Bitcoiners improving the protocol to continue 1 sat per byte going through.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how long it lasts, and then if it goes away, how when it comes back, it'll. Yeah, I wonder if there'll be what if like I don't know in a few years clearing a 1 sat per byte transaction is like a really rare event. So there's like I don't know festivals that develop around it or something like that. If it only happens like once every 36 months or something like that.
Burning Man.
Well, I think it's going to actually happen a little bit. It's definitely going to happen in the bear markets, but only.
What if there are no
as
more bear markets?
miners. That's very true. You're absolutely correct. Let's rephrase this. It is only going to happen as hash rate continues to increase, because the moment, and of course that I shouldn't say an absolute. Let me rephrase there. You will have a higher probability of 1 set per byte transactions going through as hash rate is increasing, because blocks are coming in faster. Therefore, you can process more transactions and still blocks coming in, versus as the hash rate is dropping, as we saw in 2014, 2018, again, immediately after that initial blow-off top, you still had a substantially high fee market because hash rate is leaving the network, blocks are coming in slower, therefore transactions are taking longer, and, you could have, 5 to 15 sats per byte as your kind of dust limit rather than the traditional 1 set. So I wouldn't be surprised if we do have the classic blow-off top in these next 60 days, and maybe sometime between Q2 and Q3 of next year, hash rate is dropping off in 2022 just for the price decreasing, and there's a high fee market because hash rate is leaving. But yes, we are in a perpetual bull run, 1 set per byte transactions in perpetuity.
I'm Team Jimbo. I think we see 10 million by the next halving. No, I'm not quite as bullish as Jimbo, but I think I don't know. It seems like the top is a lot more than, I would say is more than 60 days out, but it's definitely be interesting. I don't know. Do you guys? I'm curious what everybody thinks. Do you guys think American Hodl wins his bet with Peter McCormick, which is that at some point before the end of the year, the price breaks 300K? Max, sounds like you probably don't.
Oh yeah, I do. I
do?
think he's going to win. My number, my number is like somewhere in the 4s.
Okay.
Now we won't live there. Let me very briefly explain that. We're going to live there for like 30 seconds on some sketchy exchange that make it one order filled. Probably you're going to get most of your orders filled between like that $200,000 and $250,000 range for maybe like a week or something like that. But again, who knows? Price prediction is too wild to accurately predict.
Yeah. So Don has an interesting question. So he says, when do we hit a point where hash rate is still increasing, but overall energy usage of the network is decreasing? Before 2030 or before 2130?
And is that because of primarily because of efficiency gains of the new miners? Yeah.
I would assume so. Well, yeah, I mean,
say the question again if you don't mind.
When do we hit a point where hash rate is increasing, but overall energy consumption is decreasing?
So
really
hash rate goes up,
efficiency. Energy
use goes down.
Yeah, improvement in efficiency. I mean, I guess I would argue that it's already right now.
Well, the overall use of the energy, like kilowatt hours in to the network, he's saying when that goes down, but hash rate goes up.
Yeah, I guess we need to bring on more off-grid and hydro for that. But I would argue that it's kind of right now, and if not now, then definitely before 2030.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens when Blockstream and I mean, Square's talking about getting in the mining game, which is pretty wild to think about. What happens when these other entities start getting in, the ASIC production becomes a lot more competitive. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what the timeline of something that looks like, because there's going to be a lot of issues with supply chains. It's going to take a while for them to move chip manufacturing out of China, and so I don't know. We could see, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see like how energy consumption changes because there's a lot of people that really don't want us consuming a lot of energy. They don't want us traveling. There's going to be, I think, a very intentional effort to cripple energy systems and power grids across the world. And I mean, it's going to be wild to see what happens.
So, Lurk in the comments said, "Did you guys see the eye emoji tweet from Dorsey today? From the guy talking about releasing a white paper? No, I did not. Was it about? Aren't they talking about making an exchange or something like that? Because they're doing the open source hardware wallet. They're doing something with mining, and then supposedly they wanted to do something with like an exchange. I don't know.
I mean,
they already are an exchange in Cash App
already.
Yeah, but it sounded like more of like a more built out just from what I was reading, just a tiny bit about it. It sounded like more of like a built out financial services type operation, but yeah, but, you're definitely right.
With
Cash
like
App's
a Kraken.
Yeah, but except they don't do shit coins, so I'm not sure what else it would be. But yeah, no, you're definitely right. Cash App's a bank that you can direct deposit to it, everything.
Yeah. Okay. So.
I mean, I just think about when we go back to 2017, nobody was really running nodes, verifying your own transactions. Yes, you could do it with Bitcoin Core, but how many people were actually running Bitcoin Core prior to that?
Yeah.
I think Casa was the first one to come out with an actual, at-home plug-and-play node. And as people opened it up, they go, well, what the hell is this? It's just a white, injection molded case with a Raspberry Pi on the inside. And then you had the wave of the node packages come out and the DIY guide, so on and so forth. So I think he sees a very similar thing with mining, more specifically with the ASIC chips. Of course, that broadens out for just general computer chips themselves. We know that Samsung is coming here to the States. I don't know if it was Arizona or Nevada. I can't remember where they're saying they're building a facility by 2023, 2024. But it's going to be really interesting to see which, I guess I'll phrase it as packages, but it's not just to give the analogy to the node softwares. But it's going to be very interesting to see what the Blockstream, B1 chips are for ASICs, or whatever Square comes out with for their, open source, whatever ASIC chip. Especially, I know Elon tweeted about, well, why doesn't Tesla just make a space heater and it's just a Bitcoin miner, or well, he said crypto miner, but that's I think you're going to start to see all these things have just a small amount of hash rate, but that's enough because we know that Bitcoin always goes up relative to input is going to be over time. But I'm just curious to see what happens over that next epoch here in the next 4 years. Very similar to the nodes.
Yeah. Don and Lurkin are in the comments saying it's a decentralized exchange, something potentially related to BISC that they might be working on with BISC, maybe.
Yeah, I can confirm that. I just looked it up.
Yeah, I do remember that now. Yeah, it is more of a DEX. Thank you.
Soren says, anyone who does not run a node needs to be beaten in the face with a bat a little. Maybe hit with a microwave gun for a 1/100th of a second. Or just get sent not Bitcoin and not realize it and then learn the hard way. Man. Or leak all their privacy information.
Yeah. One of my favorite.
Yeah, the real comment should be who is actually using their node.
Yeah.
When you when you receive a transaction, are you receiving that to your node or a wallet connected to your node? That's the big thing.
Yeah, that's why I've never really gotten into mobile wallets because and I know it's easy to connect Blue Wallet to your node. I'm just a lazy ass, but I like desktop stuff because that's a lot easier to connect. Or I don't know. Actually, I haven't tried to connect Blue Wallet, so I can't speak to that.
It's pretty easy to connect mobile wallets.
Very easy.
All right, I just need to invest 10 seconds of effort. Then it sounds like
scan a QR code.
Oh,
yeah. BISC I haven't used BISC, but lots of people like Bisq. If you don't run your own node, you don't participate on the network. Yeah, you're relying on somebody else to facilitate the transaction for you.
And someone else has your transaction data.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So Don says, if that efficiency turn is happening now, will the most recent generation of rigs be the most profitable in history of mining?
Neil Ronan Miner makes a very compelling case for that being true. Every time I hear him argue that point, I come away, can't think of any reason why he wouldn't be right. Just basically that there's very real physics limits to how efficient they can make these chips, and that what they're at 7 nanometers now, the prospect is that they're going to go to 5, and there's all kinds of, so far, like one big thing they haven't been able to solve is how basically for every one of these that they make a whole bunch that get thrown in the trash. And so it's like, even if they come out, they're going to be extremely expensive because they're just going to have very, very high cost to produce, is the argument, the TLDR that I've heard.
Yeah, you get down to the quantum level, of course, exponentially as we reduce the nanometer. But I think the real big issue is when you get down sub 5 nanometer, where it becomes like the probability of that electron popping in and out of existence, however the fuck, quantum works. Nobody knows how it works. We just have theories on how it works. But I think it's like sub 5 nanometer is where it gets very spooky and weird. And of course, as you just alluded to, that's where your R&D goes up exponentially, and therefore, you throw away 9 for every, one that you make, because for some reason the chips are just so freaking close together, transmitting the electrons back and forth. It literally just pops in and out of existence at its own will, and it's very difficult to control. Nobody knows how it works. But I believe it's like sub 5 or like sub 4 nanometer for chip size.
Yeah, and what was I going to say? Oh yeah. So the S9, that we can kind of sort of hear behind you is it came out in, I believe, 2016 at 13.5 terahash. Like the chances that we're then now we have a S19 at 110 terahash. I think it seems like the chances that we're going to see in in another 5 years that we're going to see a that kind of leap in capacity, efficiency, all that kind of stuff. Everything I've looked into seems pretty unlikely.
I don't know. Maybe DARPA's working on some solutions. The real R&D. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I wonder, if we should be talking about finding ways to create our own power grids to do home mining.
Elaborate a little bit more. What are you thinking?
Well, I mean, I just see there's going to be a major problem. I think energy costs are going to go up exponentially. You're seeing it in some places. And I think that's something that we're going to have to be looking at is how do we generate our own power and be off grid if we're going to continue to home mine.
Yeah. Hydro is pretty much the only one that's potentially an option there.
Yeah.
But
solar sucks. We could try and make...
Yeah, the problem...
Oh. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to make the comment. The main problem with solar is the main limitation is how the speed of light, is how many photons come from the sun and actually, slam into the solar panel itself. That's limited, of course, at the speed of light. So it's just making the solar panels more efficient to capture more of that light. You need mirrors, and it's not worth it.
Yeah. But the other thing is, especially running these new miners, they're profitable too. what, I think it's something like 50 cents a kilowatt hour now.
Oh, really?
And so, like, yeah, these S19s,
Wow.
depending on exactly how you run the number, I believe it's up around 50 cents a kilowatt hour now. And then presumably as price goes up, that'll go up even higher. And so, I mean, if you're buying them now, very good chance you're going to ROI in a year or less potentially. And then it's like, let's say 6, 7, 8 years down the road, you're barely profitable. Like, who cares? You're still getting discounted KYC free sats.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So I have a question for you guys. What do you think would classify as at least the beginning of hyper-Bitcoinization? Yes, we can argue that it's already been happening since 2009, or it's happening now as countries and large institutions in the legacy system are buying, acquiring, and using. But would you consider, again, because of the chip shortage, because of the nanometer size, quantum issues, as we get more efficient, would you consider like just the beginnings of hyper-Bitcoinization if hash rate does not fall off the network, next year, and the price like maybe only falls by like 30% or so, like a normal up and down throughout the entire year of 2022? Would you kind of consider that like hyper-Bitcoinization?
Yeah. I think what would make this, everybody throws around the term super cycle. My thing would be, I think what would make this a super cycle is, like probably no more downturns more than say 30% or something like that. And then that, and I mean, another, not to bring up Jimbo again, but like another thing I definitely agree with him on is that basically everything in between here and $1 million is noise. And it's just little growing pains before things start to get a little bit interesting. And so like every time I'll hear somebody say, "Oh, at 500K, I need a new car. I'm gonna get a new car." And it's like, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I guess new car is a terrible example because get a new car if you need one. But just this idea that at some point, I'm going to sell some and I'll pay my taxes and I'll buy something shiny and nice, and that I don't agree with. Like I spend Bitcoin today. I'll keep spending Bitcoin. Buying things here and there as I can. But that's what I think would be interesting is at the point down the road when everything's priced in sats, that's when I would start to look at making a big purchase or something like that.
Yeah, I agree with Don. Like, I don't know. I think a lot of people have different ways of looking at hyper-Bitcoinization, but I think the collapse in confidence in the US dollar is kind of what leads to it. I mean, we have so much infrastructure built out right now. I think that Twitter integrating Bitcoin, even though it's not ideal, I think is a massive step. I think we're going to continue to see stuff like that happen in the future. But yeah, I mean, I think when people stop buying bonds, that's going to be an amazing point of moving towards this. And I think we're right on the tipping point of that. So, I mean, I just think the collapse and confidence in the fiat currencies is going to happen so incredibly fast. I mean,
and the dollar's not backed by the military. The military is backed by the dollar. That's what a lot of people are going to figure out the hard way.
Yeah. The dollar was backed by not having any alternatives. That's what it was backed by.
Yeah.
And that's gone now.
Once, police officers and first responders or military and whatever, once those people start to realize they're getting paid in worthless stuff and there's no way they can even hire. Well, I mean, yeah, other than forcing people in because they don't have the Bitcoin to offer them and it's too late to buy it.
I've had these conversations with first responders, with firefighters about this particular thing. I mean, it's pretty bad right now. Like when you look at the future where, okay, so Lurk's got a great comment. So the dollar is backed by Secretary Yellen's beef curtain. Yeah, I mean, when all these people look at their unfunded pensions that they are paying so much money into. I think it really pisses them off, and people are going to be looking for the alternatives.
Yeah. And now I think Don's totally right about bonds being the first to see capital controls. Because it's going to be, because none of these companies can take a 1% rise. I mean, most of them are borderline insolvent anyway. The banks have been insolvent for decades, and they just keep getting propped up. And it's like, once people really start selling these bonds, then I don't know what the Fed can do other than just monetize all of it and just completely blow everything up.
Yeah.
Well, that was the biggest concern in 2008 of China selling off their treasury holdings.
Mm-hmm.
They knew what type of catastrophic collapse that would have caused. What an avalanche of a shit show. And I'm definitely all for it. I'm right there with you guys. I'm up in the front lines, in the camps. Well, no, I'm not in the camps. I'm on the front lines, fighting for that. We're not going to fucking concentration camps. We already talked about that this weekend.
That's right.
No,
that's
fuck
for
that
losers.
Shit. Yeah, that's for losers. The people talking about going to the gulags together, like, no. Yeah. I'll be winking at you from, my nice citizen. Oh, well, you guys in the gulag or something. And I'll fight for you to get out of there. But
I'll bribe some guards.
I am right there with you. Yeah. I'm right there with you, to support the collapse of, the slave money, the slave fiat system. But it needs to, preferably it's in a controlled demolition, but the problem is who's in control of that. And of course, if you're the one controlling it, you can not only pick up the pieces that are falling, but you can configure them in the way that favors you.
Mm-hmm.
So I would prefer it to happen, I guess I'm not coming up with the right word for it, but in a more free-minded, controlled style of demolition. Because if you have that immediate collapse, like there will be, and I already understand there's already riots in the streets, but you will be protecting your front door with a 12 gauge and your two dogs or something like that, and there will be no grocery store. There will be no gasoline for you to just go and to the corner and fill up like that is true apocalyptic scenarios, and I really don't want that. But I mean, if it comes, that's great, and then we just got to deal with the consequences of that. Again, stack bullets, meat, preferably off-grid energy as you can. But as much as we preach, burn the building down, burn the place down like that, I would definitely like to get everybody saved as best we can first, prep, and that, at least put on your, oxygen mask and your fire retardant, suits, and then burn it down, right?
Yeah. Don had another good comment. He said if the Fed buys too many of them, being the bonds, they will risk breaking confidence. They have to attack the other side and force institutions to hold a certain percent of them on their balance sheets. Yeah, I think that's probably right. What would be interesting to see is when they start getting massive pushback, because obviously they have a ton of control over these institutions. So they have a lot of leverage, but that has to be limited at some point. And then Zorn asked, should kids with ADD be sent to concentration camps? No, they should they should play outside like other kids, not be expected to sit in a concrete box for 8 hours a day.
Yeah, there are
which was a joke from Zorn. He homeschools. He knows all this.
Yeah, the kids with ADD are already getting sent to concentration camps. They're called public schools. Yeah. So, I mean, when we talk about like the fall of society, I mean, what ultimately would happen, like with a big blow up, I mean, this is like the constant argument of like whether there's between the Keynesians and the Austrians, like should there be intervention in the markets to try and prevent, this boom bust cycle. And the reality is the Fed creates a boom bust cycle inherently, and it's just the transition. I don't think is going to be easy regardless. Like we've had this conversation on here before of like prolonging it and trying to move out of the system smoothly, it's not really going to happen. But what, ultimately it's just going to blow up eventually. And like, we were rooting for a debt default, a couple weeks ago, because of that. And, what ultimately happens is like humans are very resilient. A lot of us are, not all of us. The ones with blue hair aren't very resilient. But I think we'd be able to set up structures, and this is like, what I'm really focused on right now is like creating the groundwork to already have these structures built out and these networks built out of people actually producing things, so that when the time comes, we could eventually scale it and not be as reliant on, these systems. Like, what happens if there's no grocery stores? Well, there's going to be markets in the streets of people trading, and that's going to suck comparatively for a little bit, but that'll ultimately scale and people be able to sort out the supply chains. And I just think at any point, like any disruption or involvement from the government is going to make things extremely worse in this situation. It's like 2008, like things would be very, very different today if they just let the banks fail. And it would have been, initially catastrophic. A lot of businesses would have gotten under. A lot of people would have lost their homes. A lot of people did lose their homes, but a lot of people wouldn't got a payroll because the banks went under. But there would be a massive restructuring of the system. All of the idiots with their poor allocation of wealth would have got punished, and there would have been, a reset of the economy that would have led to more resiliency and better allocation of capital. And I think it's kind of like a similar standpoint that we're in right now. Like, we're just looking into the future of, it's going to happen inevitably. Everything's going to blow up inevitably. And it's like, are we going to do it now? Or are we going to just like keep on kicking the can down the road? And, I want to have the mindset of like, I'm, going to be ready for whenever it happens. And I just don't think they can control it. So, yeah.
I think there's a decent chance it's a transition, though, because that's, as we've talked about here, I definitely subscribe to the view that we're working on building a parallel society that people can opt into or not. And so I think my best guess is that parallel society gets better and better as the existing one gets shittier and shittier, and then more and more people hopefully choose to make that leap and opt out.
Man. Chat's going off about AI.
Yeah, I'm a bear on AI. I think it's fake and gay, like voting.
Yeah. So Lurk says depends on how long the masses stay dumb. I think the masses are going to stay dumb for a while, and it's just like this is how we would get the masses into Bitcoin. Of when things collapse, what's going to be the way to trade Bitcoin? We're going to be the businesses that have money.
Well, they'll be on like the third layer or fourth layer, though.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, if it were to happen right now, they'd be using Lightning pretty much entirely, for sure. And they'd be using custodial wallets, but masses are dumb by definition.
It's true. Yeah, and they've never mattered. They never will. The world will change under their feet, and they'll fit into the new paradigm as it develops. Most of them.
We should. So Zorn says you need to go take a look at where deep fakes are. I don't know what the rest of the sentence means, but yeah, deep fakes. It might be worth investing some time and effort into deep faking Dennis Porter for a promo video of Toxic Airways,
or getting Yellow to do the voiceover or something like that.
Yellow's back on Twitter. Where did Yellow go?
I love his TA.
So Yellow was off of Twitter for a little bit. Do we know what happened?
Did he get banned or did he just log off?
I don't know. Shout out to Bitcoin Becca.
Oh my gosh! Yes, shout out to her. That was awesome.
That was really funny.
I'm assuming everyone saw it.
Yeah.
You know how amazing that would be if, like, we find out that they hooked up at either like the 100K party or at like Bitcoin 22 on Miami Beach, and like 9 months later you got like a little baby sailor and Becca running around. It's like, oh my God, the plebs truly can make it.
Yeah. My guess is anyway. No, never mind. It's a live stream.
Let it fly. Let it fly.
12 says, I heard Cody Wilson is working on a project to bring machine learning to the dumb masses. That might have been a joke I missed.
That's a joke. Shout out to Cody Wilson.
Oh, Lurk has some expert TA coming for us. Spelled C-U-M. He says, Dick and Balls formation has been forming on the 1 hour chart. Things could get a little wild. Could be headed for a mini blow off top.
Yeah. When does Dennis send us our Glassnode payment?
Oh, yeah.
Or screenshots?
I think it's mostly the trading tips from British HODL. So hopefully by the time the market opens in the morning, so we can execute our mining stock trades that can be easily stolen by the government.
Cool. So we'll get them tomorrow morning. That'll be too.
Then we'll just outperform Bitcoin and we'll be good.
Man. 2-minute papers is an amazing resource to see where the tech is.
I think that's AI tech. 2 minutes. So that's probably like summarizes academic papers or something like that.
That'd actually be a cool resource. Not that I have a lot of faith in academic resource or papers, but it's not a joke. Just the dumb masses part. He's working on what I think is deep fakes or general machine learning project. He talks about it in a recent interview with Thad Russell. Oh, interesting.
That very nice. I need to check that out then. I watched one of him with Thaddeus Russell, but I think it was a few years ago. I've not watched a recent one.
Man.
I love both those guys, so I definitely need to check that out.
Cody Wilson is the GOAT. He's got a great book called Come and Take It. Big fan of that book. But anybody hasn't read it yet?
Yeah, I need to. I have not.
That was another suggestion for me to read by Heavily Armed Clown. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Oh. Man, I'm tired tonight. Are you tired?
I'm tired. Is that about it?
We're wrapping up in 2 hours. I was working on my chicken coop all day.
Nice.
Almost there. Have it done by the end of the week, hopefully. Yeah. Bitcoiners need chickens and beef, I guess.
Eggs are cheap and complete food.
Yeah. Eggs are, chickens are, but still need beef. They're trying to get rid of beef. So
Halloween party tomorrow.
Yep. We're going to Phoenix.
In Phoenix, Halloween party. If you're anywhere close to Phoenix, come check it out.
What are you dressing as? What character are you going? Who are you going to be?
I don't know. You asking me that question is literally the first thought I've put into the subject. So we'll see.
Yeah, I have no idea.
I might go as a guy without a Halloween costume. We'll see.
I was thinking about dressing up as a shitcoiner, but I don't know how I would do that.
I have a one of those inflatable dinosaur costumes. Not the brown one, but the one that makes you look like a guy riding a dinosaur. I have one of those. I got a really long time ago.
Oh, solid.
Oh, that's good.
That's better than what I have.
Zorn bought some turkey from a family farm. Go Zorn. They don't take BTC yet, but they will soon.
I've got like an old school Soviet hat from when I was living in Ukraine. I could be a tanky. But I don't know if I want to dress up as a tanky.
Yeah, what else we got? December 15th, Southern California Halloween or holiday party.
Is it the 15th?
I believe so. Let me check.
I thought it was the 9th.
Oh, it might be earlier.
I don't even have it on my calendar. Yeah.
It's OC Bitcoin Network, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. OC Bitcoin Network Halloween party. Holiday party. Jesus.
Yep. It's gonna be a blast. I'm looking forward to it. Tucson's going as Dennis. Dude, my suit smells like smoke.
Should I be Mike Alfred? I could try to coerce people into joining my investment fund that I'm definitely starting very soon.
How do I dress up as Dennis? I just do a face like that. Maybe I'll just print, like, take a piece of paper, like, take a Sharpie and write smart people shit and just tape it on my shirt. And I'll be Dennis Porter. I don't know. I've got too much going on to really to have been thinking about Halloween costumes. But yeah. Well, anyways, thank you for everybody dropping in. Look out for our TA posted. As we get the British Huddle tips tomorrow morning.
I was thinking that because the Pacific Ocean was in retrograde, we were going to see 100K by Austin Beefsteak, and that didn't pan out, unfortunately. People told me an ocean can't be in retrograde. That's only planets, and I told them they were narrow-minded. They don't understand my connection with the universe.
Lark, I'm definitely going to do that. So he says print a piece of paper and have it say by Dennis Porter.
Oh, that would be good. Because then you don't have to dress up at all.
No.
Because that's all he does is slap his name on stuff.
Shitty blue suit. I don't have a blue suit. Bummer.
I think I might have one.
Later, noobs. Alrighty.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Yep, thank you. You guys have a good night.
Hey, we'll see you guys.